All right, let's get started.
You're powerful.
Thank you. Managing for happiness. There's a reason the talk is called Managing for Happiness. Because let's just first do a test with this audience. I want to ask you all to stand up, please. Let's do a quick test, a 30-second test. Quick test. So I travel around the world, I talk with a lot of people, I notice lots of people work at companies that are not so perfect. So I want to know which of you are working at organizations where everyone is feeling happy, everyone is feeling engaged, there's a lot of money being made, and the organization is very innovative. If not, please sit down. Everyone is happy, everyone is engaged, a lot of innovation, high performance. If not, sit down. All right. Yep. Okay, so let me count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's 37% of the audience is still standing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have work to do. We have work to do, that's clear. So that's what this talk is about. And it starts with me trying to make the world a better place when I just finished my studies in Delft, University in Delft in the Netherlands. I had my own little startup trying to make the world a better place. According to some people, I did a good job because they named me Entrepreneur of the Year in the Netherlands in 1999. I was very proud of that. Entrepreneur of the Year, I was. And the jury gave me that award for my business plan. Not my business, my plan for a business. There's a subtle difference there. It turns out I was very good at writing plans. The plans for my business said that my profits would be going up. The revenue would go up. My ego would go up. Everything would go up according to my plan. The jury loved it. They'd never seen a beautiful plan as great as that. So they made me Entrepreneur of the Year. Sadly, we never found any customers. The plan didn't work. So I got 1 million euros of investment money from seed investors injected in the company. And my little business, where I hired 7 people, we were very, very successful at spending all that money to the last euro. But the plan didn't work. Oh, such a pity. But I had new ideas, and this went on, and I found out that I was not so good at managing, actually. It was just one example. I sucked, basically, as a manager. And lots of other people are not so good at managing their businesses, I have noticed. Many of them see the organization as a machine, where they try to improve the individual parts of the machine. And that doesn't work that well. Bad management leads to bad performance, and I just gave you an example of that. But now I travel around the world, which is awesome. I am now in Lyon. I will be traveling by train to Lille this afternoon, which is great. So I get to see a bit of the world, and I have noticed how we can do things better. And there is no one silver bullet for better management of the organization. There is no holy grail, as the British would say it. But who cares what the British think nowadays in Europe? Not me. But there are 7 silver bullets. I found that there are 7 things that that's sort of the theme across good management around the world. And I had to discover them myself a little bit. I'll give you examples. Did you know that it is best to convince someone of your idea when you're feeding them at the same time? Right? That's psychology. That's sociology. They do that in Brussels all the time. Right? When you want to convince someone of an idea, stuff food in their mouths, basically. Because people will then be more accepting towards your suggestion. So I once organized this with my employees. Fast forward, I was CIO of a company of 200 people, and I invited colleagues to my house for dinner. A project manager, account manager, 2 developers, a system administrator, the vice president of the paperclips. And I got them to my house, and when they arrived, I told them, and now you do the cooking. Surprise! They thought it was a little bit weird. But then they got started, and the 2 developers took care of the main course, and the account manager and the project manager would self-organize and pick up the appetizers, and the system administrator said, okay, I will do the desserts. And being a system administrator, he did not allow anyone access to the chocolate, of course, without people asking for permission. And I was managing. I was making sure that people had a great time in my kitchen, basically, pouring people drinks and things like that. And of course, I prepared the kitchen. I made everything available, the recipes and the groceries, so I prepared the environment. And that, I think, is a nice metaphor for management in the organization. So as I sometimes say, I manage the system, not the people. They manage each other in the kitchen, but I manage that kitchen around them. And I nurtured the happiness by pouring a drink every now and then. Another example. I was once sitting with my CEO at the time, and I said, we never celebrate anything around here at this company, always rushing from one project to the other, busy, 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 busy. You know what I mean, probably, right? So I said, every now and then we should just stand still and celebrate. And he said, okay, what do you suggest? I said, well, maybe something that makes a bit of noise, like a bell. Because we had a big open office space in Rotterdam, my hometown. And 2 weeks later, the CEO came to me with this copper ship's bell. I have no idea where he stole it. It was an actual ship's bell. He said, so here's your bell. Now do something useful with it. I was like, wow, awesome, a real ship's bell. So I brought it to the office police, the office manager, I mean, of course. And she placed it next to the coffee machine. And from that moment, anyone was allowed to ring the bell for any reason. Didn't matter what. A new project delivered, a new baby delivered by a person, not by the company, usually. And when the bell was rung, it made a huge, terrible noise across the office. You couldn't ignore it, basically. And then 100 people dropped their work. They got together around the coffee machine to learn what the celebration was all about. The last time I heard the bell was when the CEO announced to the whole company that I quit my job. Everyone, yay, awesome. So I learned something there. I learned that a bit of playfulness is good at the office. Why not ring a bell and have a bit of fun? And I learned that I could change the culture a little bit by running experiments. I tried something, I ran an experiment. And I accelerated my learning as a manager because I started doing more and more of these experiments. Here's an experiment that I'm running now. I am involved in a few little startups, and I noticed that contracts impose limits on people. Like, you cannot do that, you have to do that. And that makes people not happy, usually. So I thought, can I run a business without signing contracts with my employees? And let's run an experiment. This is how they think about it in one of those startups. They seem pretty happy to me. At any moment, anyone can say, well, next month I will work from Bali at half of my usual time. And we say, okay, fine, we'll make it work, because we have no contracts specifying your work hours. When they want to change their job titles, they can do that any time, because there's no official job titles. There's no contracts. So they name themselves Project Geek, Zookeeper, Project Bottleneck we have on our team. That's the kind of names that they come up with for themselves. Ridiculous, but it's us having a little bit of fun, of course. And for me, that is trying to innovate in the way we manage our companies. It's an experiment, but it's been working for 2 years already. And by not focusing on these job titles and working hours and stuff, we can focus on the meaning, on the purpose of the business. So those were the 7 silver bullets. Let's look at them again one by one. First of all, we have built for meaning. I think it's important to consider why your company exists. As some experts say, if your company wasn't there, what is it that the world would miss? That's a good question to think about. And that means that we have to innovate as managers. Innovate in the way we produce products and services, but also how we manage that system around it. We need to accelerate our learning faster and faster, because the world is changing faster and faster. So it is a cliche, but it is true. And that means we have to run more experiments, try things all the time in the way we manage our companies. That means we should add a dash of playfulness, because children have learned long ago that experimentation means playing, trying things out. What happens if I push this button? That's what kids do, right? That's experimentation, playfulness. Nurtured happiness. People only experiment and play when they're feeling good and happy in the company. And finally, I cannot make people happy, but I can definitely create an environment, a system, where the happiness emerges. And basically, that's it. Those are the themes, the patterns that I found in the last 15 years in my work. What helped me to become a better manager, the 7 silver bullets. Are there any managers in the room? Let me see. Any managers, team leaders? Okay, I see a good number of hands go up. All right. So I have a very special version of the slide for the managers to make this easier to understand. It has exactly the same information, but then presented as 7 boring bullet points, which make it more comprehensible for the average manager, such as me. Right? And then with a graph of something going up, which is very important to have on a management slide, right? Have something go up that makes it more believable. So, I'll give you some more examples, things that I have been doing. This is all about digitization, this conference, I understand. And it's the kickoff of Summ'R, which is awesome. So let's start the summer and let's talk about digitalization and digitization. I am involved in digital teams. They're remote teams. We work across the world. I have 2 startups, and both of them, we do not have offices. It is all fully remote. So yes, we need lots of technologies. I know all about it. But something is important, something is missing. That is, we don't sit in the same room. So it's harder to get to know each other, to learn what bothers someone and what kind of people they are. So I thought about that, and I thought, okay, what can I do to increase that bonding, basically, on our teams, team bonding? So I came up with personal mapping. I thought mind maps are a tool that we use to dive into a topic. What if the topic is me, or the topic is a person on my team? Let's run an experiment. So I made a mind map of myself. This is me, Jurgen, with my hobbies, friends, values, etc. And I just fill the page with whatever comes to mind. And I asked my teammates to do the same thing. So this is the personal map of Lisette. She is our remote office manager, or zookeeper, as she calls herself. And she played with pictures, which is awesome. I didn't come up with that. That was her idea. So she added pictures. And then the idea with the personal maps exercise, we do this remotely over Zoom, the technology that we use for video conferencing. And we noticed that it is best not to present yourself, because that's boring. We ask questions. So we asked question, Lisette, why did you have pink hair over there? And Lisette said, oh, that was me, 19 years old, and I was experimenting with hairstyles, and you know how it is when you're young. And then we had a great discussion of the silly things that we did when we were young, or when we were feeling young, right? So here's another one. This one is by Hanu. Hannu is our web developer, and as you can see, it's just totally obvious. Hannu is from Finland because there's almost nothing on the personal map. My friends in Finland pride themselves on the fact that they use very few words. In the Finnish language, the words are 5 times longer than any other language, with lots of I's and T's, so they have to be very economical in the language. My name is Hannu, I'm from Finland. And then the questions got started. Where in Finland, Hannu? Helsinki. Well, ultimately, we got a conversation going with Hannu, I assure you. Finnish people are awesome, by the way. This joke got a huge laugh in Finland because they say, yeah, that's us, that's us. They basically, in Finland, they apply Finnish design to language. Because Finnish design is, there's no need to fill empty space with crap. Finnish design. Here's another one. This one is by Sergey, our software architect. Awesome! I love these personal maps. They're all different people, different ways of expressing themselves, and all of that is fine. These are completely different. Dave and Terry and Nicole and Julio, very colorful. Sometimes they use online tools, sometimes crayon markers. I don't care as long as you share something about yourself that we can ask questions about. So now this is standard practice on our team. Every time we onboard a new person, a new team member, we want to see their personal maps, and we're going to ask questions about your personal map, and it's a lot of fun. And I just saw yesterday on Twitter, someone tweeted, we're doing a personal maps exercise at Eventbrite company, and they tweeted that people were drawing their maps, and that is so great, because it means our experiment is now being experimented on by other people. Another example. Let's talk about how to delegate work, because now we have a team that is enjoying each other's company. Now they need to do work. So how do we give them that work? This is about management itself. Did you know that the word management is, according to many researchers, from the Italian word maneggiare? It means handling or leading horses. Isn't that interesting? It has, it's nothing to do with a machine. It's a living system, a living thing that we have to take care of and nurture and feed, and hopefully it doesn't kick us in the face. That's like an organization. So sometimes people tell me, particularly at conferences in the agile software development space and Scrum gatherings where I am quite often, they say, we have self-organizing Scrum teams. We don't need managers. And I don't really agree there. Because a fully self-organizing team without any management, that is like a wild horse. There's nothing wrong with a wild horse, but I'm not going to sit on it, slap its ass, say yeehaw, and then hope that it runs in the right direction. What kind of management and leadership is that? We always have an intention for the horse, for the organization, for the team. And that means we have to balance the giving and taking of control. And that is what managers are not so good at. Defining the boundaries. Usually they are either dictators or anarchists. And the truth is the best position is often somewhere in the middle. I will give you examples. I have a very simple model that I call 7 levels of delegation, where level 1 is tell. You tell someone what your intention is. That's pure dictatorship. Level 2 is sell. You want to convince someone of your opinion. Level 3 is asking everyone, what is it that you think I should be doing? What is it that you think I should be doing? But then I still make the decision. Level 4 is agreement. That is, we talk with each other, the typical Dutch approach. We talk and talk and talk and talk until most people have died of exhaustion. And then the survivor makes the decision, basically. That's how we do it in the Netherlands. And then advice is giving people a suggestion, but letting them make the decision. But if I were you, I would do that. But you decide, you decide, you decide. But if I were you, you really have to go in that direction. But ignore me if you want. Coaching, basically. And level 6 is inquiring because you're interested, and then level 7 is complete delegation. You don't even need to know anymore because they're professionals. Now, I like this model because it is symmetrical. It's symmetrical. You can delegate in both directions, from the left to the right and from the right to the left. There's stuff that teams delegate to managers and others because they don't want to do that stuff. Organize our office, please. Give us some space where we can work. And you can visualize that, which is the experiment that I was after, because visualization makes so much difference. So in this case, for example, vacation days is level 3. That means people ask when they can go on vacation, and the manager decides. Can I please go on vacation from July the 15th to August 2? And the manager says, let me think about that for 3 weeks. Difficult decision. All right, for this time. Right. Traditional organizations, perhaps. Team membership, level 5. That means the teams decide which person is on which team. But the manager has a suggestion. I think maybe this person over there, but you decide. And you can visualize this with whiteboards and flip charts. This is a photo from a company in Bulgaria, where they have a delegation board. They visualize the boundaries for the horse. Where can the horse self-organize? And it is actually a Dutch board. The connoisseurs would be able to see that this is actually a Dutch company. Let me tell you something about Dutch people. I'm an expert because I'm Dutch, okay? So don't argue with me about this. Dutch people always struggle with freedom versus order, right? We love freedom, but things have to be orderly at the same time. That's a bit of a paradox, right? So, for example, has anyone ever flown into Amsterdam Schiphol Airport? Lots of people. Yes, yes. All right. So, before landing, did you have a look out the windows and did you see how nice and straight all the fields are in the Netherlands? Yes, I see people nodding. They're very rectangular, very squarey, as if Mondrian himself painted the landscape, only green instead of red and blue. Right? Now, most of what you see down there is probably marijuana, okay? But we Dutch, we don't care as long as you grow it in a straight line. That's important. Has to be in a straight line. Right. Because we cannot have the tulips get all entangled with the marijuana. That's a disaster. How can you sell that, right? The Chinese would never accept that. Right? And the French don't want the tulips. Right? So we have an interesting situation here. Do you see that tell is applied to seating? That's a seating arrangement. How interesting. That is your seat, not over there. That's his seat. Stay seated there. Perfect. Perfect seat for you. Perfect seat for you. Maybe with little nameplates for everyone, right? Perfect. Nice and orderly. At the same time, salary is delegated all the way to level 6. You pay yourself anything you want. I don't care. As long as you're in the right chair. That's important. We cannot have people pay themselves salaries from the wrong chair. That would be a disaster. Dutch, tell me about it. Here's another one. This one is from Poland, where they invented a new level 0. That probably means I'm not even going to tell them what I decided. Ha 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 ha. Or something like that. Here's one from Germany. Complicated. Lots of rules. Lots of sticky notes. There's a little game called delegation poker that you can use in order to play with the boundaries, as if you ask the horse, where do you think that the boundary is? And then the horse says, I think it's over here. And said, no, I think it's over there. It's a lot of fun. So this is an exercise that I run with my team, and it's working. It is working for us, an experiment, and it succeeded. Let's have a small intermezzo, because I was talking about the happiness, but there's an interesting dilemma here. I've been CIO for a number of years, 7 years at the company. I introduced agile thinking with self-organizing teams. They could make their own decisions, and it worked. It was great. turnover in the company dropped from 17% to nearly 0 in my part of the organization. People didn't want to leave anymore. They had more fun, and productivity went up, which was great. Made me feel good. But is that because we had success as a company that helped us to be happier? Successful practices helped the people be happier in their jobs? Or is it because happy people introduce successful practices and make the company more successful? Chicken or egg? Which one is the strongest of these two, do you think? I want you to see your hand raise only once, all right? No cheating. So if you think it is usually more often success leading to happiness, let me see your hands. Few people, 3.4% of the audience. All right, and how many of you think it is the opposite, that is happy people introducing successful practices? The vast majority, in 96.7. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's true. Usually the researchers agree, but not all of them. I found these two quotes in several books. Sean Aker said, "We know that happiness is the precursor to success. Happiness comes first," says Sean Aker of the Happiness Advantage. But Phil Rosenzweig, a professor much smarter than I am, he said, "Does employee satisfaction lead to high performance? Probably, but the reverse effect is stronger. Performance leads to satisfaction." Interesting. But he called it satisfaction, not happiness, which is not exactly the same thing. Very complicated, very complicated. So despite the complexity, a simple fact is happy workers do more. That has been proven again and again. You simply get more productivity with happy people. That 12% more productivity, as some researchers say, that could be your profit margin as a company, right? So there's good reasons for trying to have people be happier. But how do you get that happiness? What is it that we need to do to be happier workers? I was researching this once. I was in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Fascinating country, by the way, Argentina. Nothing works, everyone is happy. It's amazing, amazing. You arrive at Buenos Aires airport, all the cash machines don't work and they have different error messages. Each one fails in a different way. That's a talent, I think. That's a talent. So anyways, I was sipping a cocktail somewhere in Buenos Aires. I probably paid for it by selling the airco from my hotel room or something. I don't remember. But I found the things that make people happier in their jobs. This is what the science says. Thank someone and be appreciative to everyone around you. Give something to another person every now and then. Help someone who is in need of assistance. Eat well, healthy foods, make those available. Exercise, work out regularly. Sleep well, rest sufficiently. Experience new things, try experiments. Hike outdoors, enjoy nature. Meditate, mindfulness practices. Socialize, hang out with other people. And aim for a goal, a purpose in life and in your work. And finally, smile whenever you can, even when you have to fake it. And that's what the researchers say. I call them the 12 steps to happiness because, as some of them say, happiness is not a destination. It is a thing that you can work on every day. Just by doing these things, you will feel happier. There is no destination. The path itself is the happiness path, so to speak, which is wonderful. So what can you do in your organization? Well, for example, I know a company that has a meditation room. A company in Spain where I was, in Barcelona. They had one room available for meditation, mindfulness. It was full of yoga mats and pillows and all that stuff. They call it the Alegría room, happiness room. Awesome. One thing that I did, I invited my teams, my software teams, to do a code review outside in the sun. They thought it was strange. I said, print those classes and interfaces. I'm a software developer myself, so I know what I'm talking about. Just print it bring it outside, and I basically had to drag them from their caves into the sun, and they were like, "Oh my God, what is that bright thing up there?" I said, "That's the sun, you idiot." Never seen it before. So we went outside and we sat and we did a code review. I call that hiking. It's getting outside in the fresh air. I admit, it was only 100 meters. Okay. But at least we got out of the office in the fresh air. Steve Jobs was famous for doing this, by the way, not the code reviews, but he had one-on-one meetings with people outside of the office. He went for a stroll, and then he talked with people. Enjoy that more. So, 12 steps to happiness. It's not a destination, it's a path. You can decide to be a happier person every day. And lots of things there. And all this stuff that I'm talking about is not just for managers, okay? I hope you understand that. Because I had a management role, but all these things anyone can do, basically. I have friends who invited their colleagues to go for a weekly run on Wednesday afternoon at 5 after office hours. And people enjoyed it so much that now the group is 50 people. And they have even other companies joining from the same office building. And it was all self-organized. No managers were involved. It was just people having fun and going for a run together. Why not? A few more examples, a couple more stories. Values and culture, ooh, one of my favorite topics, Does anyone know from which company I stole this screenshot? Does anyone know which company I stole this screenshot? It was on their website. Our values are responsibility and sustainability. Anyone? Total? No. Yes, very good. Volkswagen. Our values are responsibility and sustainability. Uh-huh. Right. I think this might be a rare case of German humor that we found here. So sorry. I'm Dutch. I have to do this. It's in my genes. I can't help it. Okay. So it's not only Volkswagen. I mean, there are lots of companies out there that have problems with their values. Uber is in the news now for months already with poisonous culture, basically, right? Discrimination against women, minorities, whatever. Terrible things. Terrible culture. Enron, another American company, was famous for being destroyed by their managers, basically. And they had values in the reception room. They had integrity and honesty and all that nonsense. They were thieves. It was ridiculous. So anyone can mention values on the website, but are you really applying those values? That's an interesting question. Are you actually doing that? So as the researchers say, are the espoused values also the enacted values? Because researchers like difficult words. Right? Are you also doing what you are saying? Now, some companies have culture books. Handbooks, culture codes, they are often called. It is a way of collecting the stories of how we are actually doing what we say that we're doing on our website. A famous one is Zappos culture book. Zappos was acquired by Amazon a couple of years ago. And they have a lovely looking PDF that you can download, and they update it every few years. And it looks great with pictures and stories and their values, they list them. Other companies, such as Netflix, is famous for having one of the oldest culture books available that you can download. IDEO, the famous design firm, has one, many more. And the whole point of these culture books or culture decks is that you collect the stories of what happened in the company that resonates with our values. So you compare those stories with the actual values. Is it true what we say on our website? I found this quote in a book called Reinventing Organizations, which is a great book with a French-speaking person, awesome, Frédéric Laloux, and he said, many organizations hold yearly company-wide value days, where they get together to revisit purpose, values, and how they live up to them. You see that? People get together just to talk about that. How do we live up to our values? There's one problem with this approach. It happens only once per year. That's not enough. You have to talk about this like all the time, basically. Maybe even every week. But at least once per month, I would say. There was a quote on Twitter a couple of years ago that got a lot of retweets, thousands. The culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. See Uber, right? This got thousands of retweets. Many people recognize this. If something is happening in the company and the CEO or managers do not intervene, then that is the baseline of your culture. I prefer the positively phrased version, which is this one. The culture of any organization is shaped by the best behavior the leader is willing to amplify. Sadly, this did not get thousands of retweets yet. Still waiting. Feel free to take a picture, add my name. Thank you. So probably you need both, right? Probably you need a bit of both. Sometimes you need this one. When something bad happens, you have to intervene. Hopefully not often. But as they say in marriage, for every point of criticism, even if it is fair, even if it is correct, you should compensate with at least 5 compliments, right? Because the criticism has more impact than the compliments. So give 5 times more often compliments to the people in the organization. Shine the spotlights on the good stuff, the good stories that are happening. You need them both. What I have in one of my startups, we created a value stories channel. We use Slack as a communication tool, and you see their value stories. There we discuss things that probably resonate with our values. Because the values are hard to remember, but we remember the stories. Human brain is great as a storytelling device. This is the normal part of our team, I think. And we had a discussion recently, couple of months ago, and we decided after a few years the values changed a couple of times. Like a child growing up, its personality evolves. And then after 3 years, we said, okay, these are now our values. Dare to be bold, always be kind, make it creative. And I still cannot remember them. When I go to the supermarket for 3 items, I come home with only 2. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot the milk again. I had it on my checklist. It's not working. I cannot remember lists of bullet points. People are not good at remembering lists, but we're great at remembering stories. I remember the stories when we discussed in our value stories channel what to do with a client who ordered a book and then went on vacation, and then the book came back undelivered, and then the client came back from vacation and said, oh yeah, can you send it again? And we were like, what? Why do you order something and then go on vacation? This costs us extra shipping fees. Now, what do you do then? What kind of company do you want to be if a client confronts you with that? Well, we shipped it again at no extra charge, because we decided that that is a good image to have. But these are good stories to remember. And those stories will make more of an impact on your culture than simple value lists, I am quite sure. We also apply those values to the next practice that I'm going to show you, which is called merit money. This is an interesting one, I find. Is anyone familiar with a concept called the bonus system? Have you ever heard of the bonus system principle? Yeah, I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have, yes. Yeah. So it works as follows. People get a steady amount of income per year, and then by the end of the year, some people get a lot more. And then usually management applies what is called the 80-20 rule, which means 80% of the bonus disappears in the pocket of the manager, and then 20% goes to everyone else. And this repeats itself in a fractal way until you get to the bottom, and then nothing is left, basically. It is no surprise that for many people in the world, the traditional bonus system does not make them happy. I have validated that by now. It does not make them happy. So this is why some people say, let's get rid of all the bonuses. No more bonuses, because they just make people unhappy. And it has been proven the bonuses do not contribute to better performance. There's a huge amount of evidence for that. Bonuses do not lead to better performance. Check it. So some people said, all right, let's get rid of the bonuses. Nice idea, but you have a problem. There is a problem with that. Did you know that on average, 70% of drivers think they are above average drivers? That makes no sense. I read that among college professors, more than 80% of college professors think they are above average college professors. Now, these are smart people. They're college professors, right? They should understand the principle of average and 50%, right? No. Among leadership students, 95% they think they are above average leaders. That makes no sense at all. Among keynote speakers, it is 100%. They think they are above average. I know those people. So what happens if you pay everyone a steady amount of income throughout the year? Then 70, 80, or 90% of people will think they're underpaid because they believe they did more than others. Right? This has been proven. It was researched. It was on ScienceDaily.com last year, so it must be true. The article said, people researched, they asked people on teams, how much did you contribute to the team's outcome? They added it all up, and on overall, they ended up with 140%. Where did that 40% come from? That's entitlement, people overestimating their own contributions. It correlates with team size, by the way. The bigger the team, the more people overestimate, because that makes sense. If you have a large team, you have absolutely no idea what the people over there did on the team, but you do know that you did a lot. I worked all night yesterday night, and I do not believe that they worked all night like I did over there on the other side of the team. So this doesn't work that well. That is why I have another idea. It works pretty well with my team. It is a random bonus that is very, very small every now and then. It works as follows. Every person on our team has 100 points. At the start of the month, they have 100 points. And throughout the month, they give those points to each other for the good things that we did. Like 10 points to you for helping me out yesterday. Thank you so much. 5 points to you for your super fast response times. No idea how you do it, but it's admirable. 15 points to you for not killing me when I screwed up the web server. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Thank you for rescuing me. And these points, they build up over time. So they get peer-to-peer credits from each other. And then there's also some money set aside every month, depending on the performance of the whole team. So sometimes it could be €1,000, 2,000. It depends on how well we perform as a team. We set that aside. It's like a bonus jackpot that is getting bigger and bigger over time. So the only thing that we need to do is decide, pick a moment to convert the peer-to-peer credits that people earn from each other into the real money that is available. This is how we do that.
Okay, dice.
Oh, come on, big money, big money.
Everyone give it a kiss. Come on, lucky dice. We love you, we love you. Oh, it's a 6.
No way!
Can you see? Can you see that?
So we have a simple company rule. At the start of the month, one person throws a dice, and it has to be on video, otherwise it doesn't count. If that person throws a 6, we pay out the bonus money. No 6, no bonus. That's it. Very simple. Yeah. The bonus money is still there. They just have to throw a 6. It could take ages, in theory. No. In practice, last year, they threw a 6 twice in a row in June and July. They were very happy with that. But now they're complaining because they haven't thrown a 6 since July last year. And it's been a year already, and the bonus is huge. And they're discussing, oh, maybe we should set a limit to the number of months. They say, you're cheating, you're doing that. You're cheating if you do that. There will be a 6 sometime in the future, I'm quite sure. So the reason that we do this is of course, that we make it unpredictable, right? Because when you pay out a bonus at a certain time in the year, then people are going to expect it. They will feel entitled to that bonus. And then often it is less than they expected, and then they are unhappy again. It never works, basically. For us, for my team, it is like every month they have a Las Vegas casino. They are very excited about that. It's always fun. And they can only win. They can never lose, which makes it great. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that you start rolling the dice next week and give each other money. I understand. This is a bit extreme, okay? It is an experiment. And the experiment works well on our team. 10 people, small-scale experiment. But what you can see is you can delegate much more than you would expect from management. I do not decide who are the great performers, because I can't see all the individual interactions and collaborations on the team. But they see it from each other, and we now have real data about who did what and who is thankful for what kind of things that people did. And even if you leave aside the money, I know companies that said, we just implement the credit system, because that's great. We forget about the money, but we give each other thank yous and the points, and then we do something fun once per month, like a random draw of who doesn't have to pay for the coffee or something like that. Very something similar. And they say it works. It works because people enjoy giving each other the points. Of course, it leads to questions. It leads to questions. Sometimes people ask me, Jurgen, doesn't this become a popularity contest? Is it like the most popular people on the team get the most points? Is it the extroverts get all the money? I don't see it on my team. I actually had someone do the analysis. We checked who are the introverts, the extroverts. Is there a correlation in the points? No, there was not, but that's our team. But yeah, in theory, it could become a popularity contest. I'm not saying that it won't. But you already have a popularity contest with a traditional bonus system, right? It is called kissing the boss's ass. That's the traditional bonus system in many organizations. The people who are best at kissing asses, basically, get the most bonus money, right? What I do with my small startup is basically democratize ass kissing, what we have. We democratize it much better. Anyways, last example. I have less than 8 minutes left. Perfect. So I rang the bell every now and then. I told you that example, that story of ringing the bell. When should we ring the bell? Just for successes or also when there are failures? Did you know there are fail conferences in the US? Where people get together to celebrate failure. Like, yeah, I wasted 1 million euros of investor money, woohoo! How many of you say, every now and then, it is okay to ring the bell when we failed? Let me see some hands. Failure is okay. It's okay to ring the bell when we failed. Okay, I see a good number of hands. About half of the hands go up. All right. How many of you say, well, that's all very nice, but I prefer that we ring the bell for successes? It's better to ring for successes. All right. Even more hands go up. Okay. How many of you say, let's just ring the bell for everything? Failure, success, party all the time. Yes, I thought so. It's becoming summer, of course, party. Well, this is the real story. I made a diagram based on the work by Donald Reinertsen, who is 10 times smarter than I am. He wrote a very complicated book called Principles of Product Development Flow, full of information theory, queuing theory. But I made a simple diagram to make it understandable for me. And it turns out other people find it useful as well. We apply good practices because they usually work. That's the whole point of calling them good practices, right? That's the idea of calling them good practices. Like, a good practice is that I have my own smartphone here as a timer. Simple, easy to do as a speaker, and many of us do something like that. So that's a good practice. Sometimes good practices fail. Yeah, it happens every now and then. Good practices don't work. Mistakes are the things that are bad practices. I prefer to call them mistakes because we don't do them intentionally, and mistakes usually fail. But sometimes mistakes succeed. I'm very good at this area, I'm being an idiot, and I get away with it. So some of the greatest inventions in history have emerged because some people made mistakes. Vulcanized rubber was invented because someone spilled some liquids on a stove, and then rubber emerged. Same with safety glass, was an accident actually, and then pacemaker was a result of somebody inserting a resistor the wrong way around in a device that was supposed to mimic heartbeat, but then it started to measure heartbeat. Interesting. So mistakes usually lead to failure, but sometimes they succeed. Now, experiments are in the middle. Experiments sometimes succeed, sometimes fail. That's the whole point of calling them experiments in the first place. We don't know what will happen. Let's try. And it turns out that learning is optimal when we run experiments. That makes sense. Scientists do this all the time. The information accumulation is highest in the middle. So we don't learn anything when we just repeat good practices. We don't learn anything when we repeat mistakes. We do learn when good practices fail. Aha, so this does not work in this particular situation. Or when mistakes succeed. Now the problem is, when you celebrate failure, you celebrate this part of the diagram. That doesn't make any sense. Because why would we celebrate failure from us being idiots? Right? Making mistakes. We already knew that it would probably not work. We did it still, and again, it didn't work. Duh, we would say, right? Why celebrate? Yeah, I validated that again, still, it doesn't work. No, it is good to celebrate success. That is true. But the problem is, when you only ring the bell for successes, you basically incentivize people to move in that direction. They will prefer to repeat good practices over there. And then who is going to run the experiments? Ooh, scary. Scary, because you might fail. Yes, that's the point with running an experiment. But the learning is optimal there in the middle. So what you should ring the bell for is learning. For successes and for learning. Even in the cases when you failed. As long as you learn something, you ring the bell for the fact that you learned from it. Now, it turns out that networks are great at learning. Informal networks, complex adaptive systems, as some people call them. Hierarchies are great at repeating the same mistakes. When those hierarchies, great at repeating the same practices. When those hierarchies are big, we call them enterprises. Big companies, lots of hierarchy often. Hierarchies are also good at repeating the same mistakes, by the way. And then we call them governments, usually. And we need a bit of both. We need networks and hierarchies. Yeah, usually the networks are great for the experimentation, the informal trying things out with each other, and the hierarchies are good at standardization, optimization, making things more efficient, and doing the same thing a million times. Right? The first smartphone was invented by a small network of super smart people, Steve Jobs, John Ivey, etc. But then when they figured out how to make it work, then they could bring it to the hierarchy, and the hierarchy drove it for efficiency, make another billion copies of the same thing. So by all means, celebrate successes when you also celebrate the learning that you have achieved as a company or as a team. And I call this a celebration grid. Again, it was an experiment for me and my team, and in my workshops particularly. At the end of workshops, I usually draw a celebration grid, and then I ask participants, so, what good practices did you see? What mistakes did we make? And what are the new experiments that we can be running? And then people use sticky notes or whatever to indicate where they learned something or what we should try next time. A celebration grid, and this is again an example of a Dutch company. You can see that because they finished their retrospective just before 5 o'clock. Yay, finished, done. All right, very punctual. We want to go home. All right. So celebration grids. And hopefully you noticed these 7 silver bullets through all these stories. Right? Hopefully you saw that every now and then I manage a system. Like with the peer-to-peer bonus system, I don't manage individual bonuses, but I manage the system, the entire bonus system, and people manage each other basically. I add a dash of happiness and playfulness. The dice throwing, that was my idea. The team loves it. It's a big thing now. And just playfulness. We run experiments, try things all the time, accelerate learning. And this way, I try to keep innovating what it means to lead a team, to work on a team, to manage a team. And as I said, you don't need to be a manager to do these things, except when it comes to paying money. I'm sure you will need managers involved, but all the other stuff, it can be done by anyone, basically. Until we have companies that build for meaning, right? That have something meaningful to contribute to the world. All of that is in this book, Managing for Happiness. Maybe you have seen it before. And I want to end with one last comment that one of my teammates told me just last year. It was interesting. It was Jennifer, our marketer. She said, Jurgen, you are my first manager who doesn't suck. And I had to think about that for a few seconds. And I thought it was probably a compliment. After 20 years of sucking as a manager, I finally am in a situation, at least I do not suck anymore. Right? It's probably going to take me another 20 years to be actually any good. And then hopefully you will invite me back to tell you about the new stories I have then. So thank you so much for listening and enjoy the event.
Thank you, Jurgen.
Thank you,
it
too.
It was very inspiring.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know we run a little bit late. How is the timing in terms of Q&A?
I think we have the time for several questions, maybe 5
All right.
short questions. Have we got 5 questions in the room? Who will be the first? Aha. In English? Yeah? No? Yeah.
Questions?
Marvelous. Please applaud our first question.
Thank you. How long does it take for you to end up the experiment and have a conclusion saying, well, it works, keeps going on, or we stop, I'm sorry we failed, and we try something else, or we will just come back to the previous system? Right,
great question. So how long does it take you to draw a conclusion from an experiment, basically, right? One thing that I learned is you want the experiments to be small. Like I did experiments that were too big in the past, like the startup that failed with 1 million euros. That was a 1 million euro experiment. It was too big. You have to make it as small as possible. You want to learn within 1 week. But some people say you only fail when you give up, right? So after every iteration is an experiment, but you may not want to call it a failure yet if you do not get the results you want. You just check, do I want to invest another week or another 2 weeks to see if I get the results? And then hopefully you do some data measurement that you see some number going up where you want it to be after a while. I mean, if you did 2 or 3 iterations and nobody is happy with the new system, then probably you have to give up. So I would say come up with something to measure, some target where you want to end up with the experiment, and iterate with small sprints, as some people would call them, small experiments. And maybe you get your target after the first experiment, maybe after 10. But as long as you see the number go up, at least you have an idea of how long it's going to take. Yeah. Interesting question, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your keynote. I'm from Brussels too, and
you are from Brussels as well.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm talking niet maken. I'm gonna speak in Dutch. No, but I have a question for you. I know how in Brussels we can be conservative in all ways of working. Now, since I'm in Paris, I can see different ways of working and different infrastructure that has been built in the city and also here in the region to promote new ways of working, like decentralization, excubation of work. Yeah. So my question is, don't you think that a way of measure happiness is also the way of we can measure the innovation? Because happiness is interaction. Interaction creates innovation that creates work, that create product, that create new markets, you know? So it's what I didn't find in your keynote right now. So I want just to have your opinion on that.
Yeah, so to understand your question well, it is measuring happiness would also be an indicator of measuring innovation. Yeah. I think you have
with
a point.
Interaction, because you were speaking about remote work.
Right.
And I'm not sure that remote work is a solution. It can be a part of the solution, but not the solution.
But I think there are multiple things that contribute to the innovative capability of the organization. And the happiness of workers is one. But there are other things. Diversity is another big thing nowadays. Try to be diverse in your organization, be inclusive in people's backgrounds, cultural, ethnical, whatever contributions they can make, because the more diverse, the more creative ideas you will have. There's science confirming this. It is harder than with such diversity to get people aligned, but it is worth the trouble. And that is another thing that you can actually measure, the diversity of people, and not only in the color of their skin, but also in the brain diversity, what kind of thinking they apply to problems, for example. So yes, happiness, but also diversity, and I'm also sure several other variables would culminate basically in the innovative capability of the company. Sure, thanks.
A last question?
Final question.
Yes, last question.
How much can you scale? Because you have a team of 10 people. So when you are starting to talk about bigger organization, and you alluded to this a bit, how much can you scale that?
How much can you scale? That depends on the specific practice. Take, for example, personal mapping. You do that with 10 people maximum, right? You don't do that with 10,000 people. You're not going to organize a personal mapping exercise. But an organization of 10,000 people will probably have 2,000 teams, and 2,000 teams could do personal mapping on their own team. So it only scales horizontally, basically, right? You can copy the practice from one team to the other, but there is nothing connecting the teams, basically. That means you will need other practices at other levels of abstraction. If you want multiple teams to get to know each other better, which is also a good thing to achieve. One thing that I did just last week with 2 of my startups, we played a game against each other. It was a lot of fun. We invited the other team, the other startup, for 30 minutes on Monday, and we did a very simple 30-minute game. Was great, because of course both teams tried to win, and we already said we're going to do this maybe once every month, and that's going to be a way for us to stay in contact, get to know each other a little bit better. It's another practice with the same intention of getting to know each other. So some practices scale by default, like the peer-to-peer crediting, that is theoretically boundless. It is a social network. You can credit any number of people. So it is a practice that could scale upwards. Some practices only scale horizontally, but then you will need other alternatives at other levels, keeping in mind the intention of what you want to achieve. Yeah, it's a great challenge. Thank you.